A couple things. We're going to tackle chapter 8 and chapter 9 today. Both of them are about understanding. But a couple things before we get started. One thing is that you need to get your characters in. You got to remember that I don't count off for late work. That doesn't mean you can put this stuff off forever. You're not going to be able to do any counseling at all, and that's a requirement of the class, as is the character history. You're not going to be able to do any counseling unless you have a character yourself. You The idea is that you trade counseling sessions back and forth with your classmates. Don't forget, you need to create a character who does not have a problem that you've ever had or that you're close to. Um, if you do, one of the potential problems is that you may have a relapse. You may start identifying with the problem once again, and we certainly don't want that to happen. So you need to get your characters in, email them to me, and I will put them on the discussion page, and I will explain to you more about how we're going to how you're going to indicate to me that you've done your counseling sessions. We'll do that later. But get your characters in. Your papers are due. I will accept them up to the end of the semester. If you do them now, however, you will be researching the problem that your character has, and it may be a little bit easier for you to get into character when you are when your classmates are counseling you. That's one thing. The other thing is that I don't know if you've done this chapter 6 discussion. What I want you to do is practice good counseling techniques with somebody that you know, somebody that you're relatively comfortable with. This is really kind of interesting because if you were white, for example, you would want to have eye contact constantly. Now the reality is that not everybody is a traditional Dene person that you'll be dealing with. Even if you stay on the reservation, you still may be dealing with individuals who are not as traditional as the fifth floor wants everybody to be, and that's just the way it is. I've had students in the past who wore skeletons on their person, and of course that's not really something that's taboo. You're really not supposed to do that. You just never know. You just never know how traditional somebody is. They may be somebody who just moved back to the reservation from Phoenix or from Tucson or from Los Angeles. You just never know how traditional they're going to be. So the reality is, this is something that you've got to figure out because you need to make your client comfortable. That's part of the understanding, and we're going to talk about this today. But eye contact is one of those things. Now, if you were just dealing with one group of individuals, like I was taught that you'd always make eye contact with everybody, but they weren't really talking about the Dene people when I was doing my counseling with the University of Northern Colorado. And the people up north, the indigenous people in the north, they don't. It's not a taboo as far as they're concerned. They don't point. They point with their lips, but they don't point with their fingers. And that's similar to your traditions. So the whole point is that you need to sound out your client to figure out how much eye contact you can potentially have with them. If you have too much eye contact and they are a more traditional Dene person, then potentially what will happen is that you'll scare them off. They'll think that you've been trained by a white guy, which is true in this case. But it's just part of the understanding. It's part of what you need to do. And as a white counselor, if I were counseling somebody who was Dene, then I would need to know that as well. In my training, I've been taught that you make eye contact. And of course, that's basic as far as your book is concerned. Now, the interesting thing about your book, it's out of Indiana University. Chang, Scott, and Decker are out of Indiana University, and of course, I'm from Indiana. So, some of the things that they're saying, I'm going, that's pretty Hoosier right there. Anyway, okay, so we're going to talk about expressing understanding. The chapter 9 is about understanding as well. So let's go ahead and get started with the lecture this week. There we go. Okay. Being empathic involves connecting with clients by attuning to their thoughts and their feelings. Of what is shared, one must consider the content that is coming out, the feelings that they're talking about, and the possible meanings of what they're talking about. According to Norcross, the empathic practitioner attends to what is said and is at the periphery of awareness, as well as what is said and is the focal awareness. I don't know if that makes any sense. Anyway, yeah. So you need to be aware of what is happening. Empathy is seeing the world as that person sees it, not as you would see it if you were in their situation. And this is tough. This is really tough. People that give advice, that give a lot of advice, these individuals are telling them what they would do if they were in that situation. This is how I would feel. But of course, that's not what empathy is. Empathy is understanding them from their point of view. Feeling the way that the person feels about the situation, understanding the meaning that the person is giving to events, grasping the assumption that influences their particular worldview. By being empathic, a practitioner can learn to connect with people from different backgrounds and experiences, and not the easiest thing in the world. The essence to building a client-practitioner relationship depends on whether the client feels understood. Clients will not share personal thoughts and feelings unless they feel understood. If a practitioner can establish a sense of empathic understanding with the client, they are more likely to build a therapeutic relationship. Point of fact. Expressing empathy means communicating an understanding of another person's experience, their behavior, their viewpoint, their meanings, and their feelings. Empathy involves restating in your own words your understanding of what the client is expressing. When a practitioner uses empathic understanding, because the client feels understood, they are more likely to be open and trusting, to share more of their thoughts and feelings, to help clients who are having trouble expressing themselves. Help clients who are having trouble. When a practitioner uses empathic understanding, they are validating the client's experience. It shows the client that the practitioner accepts and understands the client's experiences and their concerns. This is especially important if the client has been told that their point of view is incorrect due to an abusive relationship. And you can have abusive relationships at any age and in any situation. There can be abusive relationships. And you need to be careful. It isn't just females who are being abused. Males aren't the only ones who can abuse. Children can be abused, certainly. Spouses, partners, but also males can be abused. And this is one of the things that this is kind of tough because that's not very traditional. I'm not Dene traditional, but U.S. traditional. that males are vulnerable, can be vulnerable. Students often feel awkward or uncomfortable trying to express empathic understanding. Most societal norms don't allow people to talk about feelings. Nodding and saying, is less personal. And of course, wow, that's awkward. Wow, look at how she collapses after she tried to make the high five. When reflecting content, practitioners restate their understanding of what the client has said. This reflection of the client's reality indicates to the client that the practitioner is trying to understand. You might say, are you saying, what I hear you saying is, as I understand it, it sounds like, and what you're actually saying is, I hear you. Practitioners must show that they are attuned to a client's emotional experiences, and they can do this by reflecting feelings. Besides what the client is saying, the client's feelings can be discerned from their body language, their tone of voice, their facial expressions. Reflecting feeling may be accompanied by a softer voice or leaning forward to imply deeper connection with what the client is expressing, more firmness if the client is expressing negative emotions like anger, disgust, or dismay. Getting the client's feelings wrong is all right. As long as you share your hunches in a tentative voice, clients will probably feel comfortable correcting you. Some feelings are not as acceptable in select cultures as in others. Reflecting feelings, the client, I haven't heard from any of them. If they are busy, they could at least email me, and you might say, it sounds like you feel sad about that. The client sounding angry and speaking with a tight jaw, I feel like we just aren't getting anywhere. You might say, you seem to be feeling impatient with me and our progress. The client on a team, some of the people on this team just aren't carrying their weight. You might say, I'm guessing you're feeling kind of frustrated. The client, a family member looking scared, when they start fighting and yelling, I just run up to my room. You might say, I wonder if you feel kind of scared. The client says, yesterday, out of the blue, I was one of the people they laid off. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And you might say, wow, what shocking news. You look like you are feeling quite worried and upset. In common conversation, many people believe that they are reflecting feelings, but are actually expressing thoughts, opinions, or judgments. This is usually because the individual is saying, I feel that, instead of I feel, followed by an expression of feeling. I feel that you aren't paying attention to me. That's a thought or a judgment. I feel that this assignment is too hard. Thought or a judgment again. I feel that you children should clean your room. That's a directive. I feel that you always misunderstand me. I feel that this group is terrific. I feel that you have lots of strengths. You're just showing that you don't really understand. Let me take a quick drink. In families and groups, practitioners may encourage members to reflect feelings. Especially in family situations, the practitioner can ask how they think someone else in the family feels. Often the problem in groups is that situations are engendering feelings that are engendering feelings that are not being expressed or acknowledged. It is possible to reflect both content and feeling in the same sentence. Using this skill allows the practitioner to include more information in their reflective comment. Client, can you believe it? She just left me a note telling me to leave. She hadn't said anything about leaving. You might say, sounds like you were shocked when your wife told you that she wanted you to leave. Ever since I was laid off, I just mope around. I am just at a loss. So in a way, you're grieving about losing your job. Group at a picnic where one person didn't show up and didn't let them know. The practitioner might say, it seems like most of you were feeling hurt and a little angry that Mary Ann didn't show up at the picnic. It is no fun to watch football games since Dad left. You might say, so before your dad left, the two of you used to watch football games together, and now you feel sad and really miss him whenever the football games are on. Summarizing involves listening to considerable information provided by the client and communicating understanding of that information. Sometimes clients have so much information to share that practitioners listen for some time before making a reflecting comment. And that's okay. The less you talk, the better it is for your client, as long as the client is talking. In the dominant culture in the United States, it is considered impolite to interrupt. But after taking masses of information from the client, it is considered appropriate for the practitioner to interrupt in order to summarize. I am really trying hard in school, but I can't seem to get the grades that I want. You might say, you sound discouraged because even though you are working hard, you are disappointed with your grades. When I am angry with my friend, I tell her how I feel and then she does the same thing again. You might say, maybe don't say anything. Oh, what happened? Wait a minute. There it is. It sounds like you are unhappy because your friend has ignored what you told her about how you feel. We're on slide 29. I wonder why it didn't work. Oops. At the beginning of a session, as I remember your last meeting, we focused on how distressed you felt about your wife's roller coaster behavior toward you. When she is friendly, you feel good and get more work done, and when she is distant, you worry about and have trouble sleeping and focusing on work. Is that how you remember it? Or maybe you can summarize at the end of a session. We have discussed both sides of the issue and noted the pros and cons of each direction we could go. I appreciate how difficult this discussion has been for some of you. It appears that some members of the group seem to be troubled when people disagree with each other. During a session with a group, everyone in the group seems relieved that we have agreed to keep all the information confidential. At the end of the session with a family, you might say, Jamie and Mary, you seem to be ready to take charge of some of the family problems. It has been hard to disagree with your children on what should happen next. I can imagine that the children are upset because you think your opinions don't count. Reflecting meaning is when a practitioner expresses their understanding of the underlying meaning of what the client is discussing. Reflecting meaning is not as straightforward as understanding content or feelings. To understand meaning, practitioners need to not only be good observers of the behavior and tone that accompanies the content, but also must listen for the possible meaning a client is giving to a situation, an action, a thought, or a feeling. When working with clients who come from different backgrounds than your own, it is particularly important to express your tentative understanding of their meaning. For example, a student from a Chinese or Chinese American family must always get excellent grades or be considered a disgrace to their family. Client wringing their hands and looking worried. I thought we had a good marriage until my husband told me that he lost his job and had spent our family money on seeing call girls. We are very religious and want to put this marriage back together. You might say, I hear you value your marriage and at the same time are shocked and worried about your husband's behavior. Is that right? Counseling group member. I really enjoy spending time with the man I am dating, but my job is so demanding these days that I am feeling stressed and worried about getting everything done. Practitioner might say, it sounds like you really value time with George and also want to do a good job at work. Family member, since Bob the father lost his job, it seems like we go from one stress to the next all the time. It is like everyone is worried most of the time, and not all like it used to be. Not at all like it used to be, you might say. So the stress related to Bob being unemployed is affecting everyone. Sounds like you are longing for the fun times you used to have in your family. Task group member, finishing this project is taking forever. I am sick of having to do so much extra work. I wonder if it is worth it. The practitioner might say, you sound frustrated and kind of discouraged too. It sounds like you wonder if the project is as important as you once thought. Is that right? You pause for a response. How are the rest of you feeling? When developing a relationship, it is important to deal directly with diversity variables. For many clients, having a worldview similar to that of the practitioner is more important than differences in age, in ethnicity, in race, in gender, in sexual orientation, in education, or physical differences. Language can prove to be a barrier, even when the practitioner and the client speak the same language. One may speak in slang, one may speak using a great deal of jargon. The client may be from a region that the practitioner is not familiar with. Different generations may use the same words and phrases differently. It is important to express empathy in cases where the client is from a different ethnic group, of a different age, of a different gender, religion, has different physical abilities. Conveying that you completely understand how they feel is rarely accurate and hardly useful. How could you understand how an amputee feels if you have all of your limbs? You can't possibly understand how it feels to lose a limb. Your goal is to understand how the client feels, what they experienced, and what meaning that experience had for them. Empathic understanding increases a client's sense of being understood. It takes considerable courage to openly discuss concerns with a stranger. And that is the end of chapter 8. So let's go on to chapter 9. There we go. Chapter 9. Gaining further understanding. Before asking questions, it is important to express understanding by reflecting feelings, content, meaning, summarizing. We talked about this in the last chapter. Questioning without expressing understanding may seem like grilling. Open-ended questions are questions that require more than one or two-word answers. They invite clients to express opinions and feelings. Open-ended questions generally begin with who, what, when, or how. How do you feel about that? Tell me about. Will you tell me about? Will you tell me more about? Will you tell me more about how you feel when? Will you explain more about? Tell me about who has helped you with this problem. How have other people helped you with this problem? What led you to seek help at this time? Tell me about improvements you have noticed since our last appointment. What would your life be like if this problem wasn't going on? How have others you know solved this type of problem? Who have you talked to about this problem? How did it help to talk about others about the problem? Tell me about what it feels like to have this problem. How have you solved other problems in your life? What do you understand about the kind of help I might offer you? Tell me about what you have done to work on this problem. Closed-ended questions are questions that can be answered with one or two words. Closed-ended questions are appropriate when the counselor is seeking specific information. How old are you? What is your address? How many other people live in your house? They give you facts and are easy to answer. Skilled practitioners choose the type of question to ask based on their goals. Beginning practitioners often overuse closed-ended questions. Using closed-ended questions may imply a practitioner's need to be in control rather than work collaboratively with the client. Some clients treat open-ended questions as closed-ended questions by giving one-word responses. It is necessary for the counselor to encourage them to speak more. Tell me more about. When did this problem start? Closed-ended question. Yesterday. What do you like about school? And the answer is always recess. What do you do when your husband comes home drunk? Do you check in with each other at the beginning of their meetings? Do you eat dinner together? Asking more than one question at a time is confusing. In their reply, they will only answer one question, and you may potentially miss important information. Is it hard for you both to work and study? How does your family feel about this? Too many questions. Asking multiple choice questions may inhibit the client's exploration. How do you feel about that? Sad, confused, angry? However, with a client who has a limited vocabulary or isn't used to expressing their feelings in words, the occasional multiple choice question can help. Up, down, all of the above, none of the above. That's funny. Asking rapid fire questions. While this form of questioning is common in some cultures, most people feel that this style fits more with interrogation, not with it creating cooperative working relationships. Attempts at showing understanding should come between questions. You ask so many questions. Why you ask so many questions? Okay. Questions with a suggestion embedded. Sometimes questions are used to inform or persuade clients about your point of view. Don't you think it is important for you to go back to school and complete your GED? Do you think of trying to exercise more to decrease your depressed mood? Questions that begin with why often invite people to feel defensive. Why questions rarely invite open discussion and may be experienced as attacking. People actually often aren't aware of why they act the way that they do. Problems or challenges are important to explore. The history, the length of duration, the current changes, previously employed attempts at a solution, the severity and the frequency of a problem. Using scaling questions can be valuable, using a 1 to 10 scale to rate an aspect of the problem. What aspects of the client's life are affected by the problem? The situation and environment are also important and can sometimes give a more complete perspective on the problem. Likert scale. This is a Likert-like scale. I'm going to ask you a question and I want a Likert-like answer. On a scale of 1 to 10, A nurturing and sustaining environment can support a client through many stressors. What life stressors has the client experienced? Number of children and other people in the house, job demands, deaths, illnesses, and or major health challenges. What life stressors has the client experienced? Current or past traumatic events in family or community, demands related to school, church, and church involvement, volunteer activities. If the practitioner is genuine, clients feel more comfortable exploring. Being stiff, distracted, or detached does not indicate. Wait a minute. If the practitioner is genuine, clients feel more comfortable exploring. Okay. Being stiff, distracted, or detached does not indicate genuineness. Genuineness is indicated by being natural, sincere, authentic, candid, honest, and forthright. And that is the end of the chapter. So don't forget, you need to get your characters in. I'm not going to set a date. We're going to start counseling the 10th week. When is the 10th week? I think it's the beginning of April, if I'm not mistaken. It may be at the end of March. So get your characters in. I'm giving you points for it. But like I said, I don't count off for late work. Don't put everything off to the end, though. That's not a good plan. So I will talk to you next week about chapter 10 at least.